Welcome back to Smoked BBQ Source. I'm Ricer, and today I'm doing the first cook on the Weber Searwood 600. For this first cook, I'm actually testing to see how it performs when I'm smoking up some barbecue. And what a better way to test to see how it performs, I'm doing some no-wrapped ribs. Prepping these up is pretty simple. We're just gonna get the membrane off the back. Trim them up, we're just gonna get them kind of evened out a little bit. Trim some of this excess gnarly off it, and repeat on the other ones. This stuff I'm actually gonna use for some pork stir fry. These are pretty even, they're good enough for government work. For today's cook, I'm doing it pretty basic. I'm using our pitmaster's pick. I am gonna put on our sweet BBQ sauce at the end, but we'll also put a link in the description where you can find our ultimate dry rub for ribs. Now on the back side, I don't like to get too much rub on because it typically likes to get kind of charry, especially on a pellet grill. Top, we're gonna coat liberally and get a little bit on those sides. Tappity tap them. Now it all depends on how thick you put it on, but yeah, I used about a cup. Now I'm just gonna let these set and sweat while I get that Weber Searwood fired up. But this pitmaster's pick, it certainly adds a really nice barbecue color. I dumped out the char hickory that I used on the burn off, and we're gonna use some cherry from Z Grills. Because in the past, they kind of talked about how you could only use Weber pellets on the old smoke fire. Well, I used all different kinds of pellets on the smoke fire and I never really had any issues. But on the Searwood, somewhere I saw somebody was talking about you can use any pellets now. So we're using Z Grills today. In the manual, it says leave the lid down when you're starting it up. So that's what we're gonna do. Turn it on. And we are going to run these at 250 degrees today. Starting to make a little fan noise. I hear the plinks and plunks going on in there. A minute and a half, I already am starting to see some smoke. For a lot of you that are accustomed to leaving the lid open, I don't think it matters. A lot of the newer generation pellet grills have gone to this lid down because of the way the smoke exits out the back. Seems like you could have some issues. All right, we've got ignition. I can hear the afterburner. Now this has been right around 3 minutes and we've already ignited and we've already up to 100 degrees. I certainly can say that Weber's right. This pit does preheat a lot faster than the smoke fire. There's 6 minutes and we're at 225 degrees now. And that's still giving us enough time to get these bones nice and sweaty. Look at them, some beautiful color there. 240 and we are at 7 minutes. Inside the chamber, that might not be completely neutraled out at 250 degrees, but I always just go by the controller when I start throwing my meat in anyways. We are at exactly 9 minutes and we hit 250 degrees. I think that rapid control PID controller, something like that it's called, has done a great job. I mean, it is pretty rapid. So we'll get them in. Start with one right here on the right-hand side. Remember, squish them in a little bit. Kind of want to keep them as even as you can because, well, honestly, they just look a little better. I mean, you can always just go ahead and throw them in there however you want, but then you might get some crooked bones. The only thing that I plan to do to these no-wrap ribs today is actually add a little bit of spritz. I'm just using plain hot water. In the past with the smoke fire, I did notice that any type of barbecue did tend to run more on the drier side. It's really hard to explain, but I think a lot of the smoke fire owners out there can agree with me on that the barbecue seems to be drier if you don't add any water. This is just testing out, do we need a water pan in with any barbecue or don't we? With that open design, I think there's just a lot more airflow. On the next barbecue cook, I might be adding a water pan. But for right now, we're just running it bare bones. There ain't no water but the spritz. I'll bring you back in about 2 hours and we'll give these ribs a gander so we can see how this cook is going. I'm a couple hours into these no-wrap ribs. Let's take a look at them. One thing I want to add is I did rotate them 180 degrees and moved them throughout the pit just so we get a little bit more consistent and even cooking on all 3 racks. And honestly, after only 2 hours, I'm pretty happy with that color. Take this one, move and rotate him, and we're gonna take this one, move and rotate him, and you can see we're starting to crack a little bit. And this one here is on the end. Let's get them right in the center. And what I said earlier is how you put them on is how they're gonna come off. Well, you can see that they've kind of set and locked into their position. Get a little bit more of a spritz on here. They aren't looking too dry. This is only the second time that I've spritzed them up. I love this sprayer, by the way, because it's got a locking mechanism so you don't have to sit there and hold the button. Now I'll just keep on rotating them and spritzing as needed. And once they get close to being probe tender, I'll bring it back and we'll throw some sauce on them. I'm 7 hours into this cook and I'm a little surprised, to be honest with you, that these no-wrap ribs are taking that long. Once I hit that 5-hour mark, I actually put in my signals so I could get some temperatures throughout this chamber. Because the actual controller doesn't change much more than like 5 degrees. And I know that's not actually true when I'm opening up the lid and rotating those ribs all around. And what my signals is actually showing, we have at least a 50 degree from right to left. First I measured the temperatures in the front of the pit, and then after an hour I moved them to the back, and I'm still having the same results. But in this back left corner, that's where I noticed the biggest difference. We aren't even reaching that 250 degrees that I set it at. This will be the last time that I rotate these around. I mean, we're pretty flexy. Let's check and see how we're doing for some tenderness. Yeah, they're getting there. They probably only got about another half an hour. Yeah, we're running right around 194, 95, 96. So I'm pretty close on the temperatures. So let's mud them up with a little bit of sauce. I don't need a ton on there. Just spread it across. Whoops, and grab your brush and even them out. I do like the color that we got. We're obviously catching some good smoke on these. All right. It's pretty even. Now obviously I'm gonna let that sauce get nice and caramelized and we're gonna let it melt into that meat a little bit. And that'll take right around 15 to 20 minutes. And then I'll bring it back when it's time to slice up these bones. After 8 hours, it is finally messy Marvin time, so I can dig into these mudded up ribs. I think I'm gonna take this middle one, a little bit more meatier on the back end of it. Before I cut into these St. Louis, I did take out the grates and that big huge flavor bar to see what it looked like inside that chamber. If we had any grease or ash buildup. At the bottom of the chamber, it looked pretty clean, and I think most of the grease is in that bottom catch. But I did see a little bit of ash in that top heat deflector. Now, I don't know if that's really a big deal or not, but I am going to leave it because, like I said in the first look at the Weber Searwood 600, I'm not going to do any maintenance until I've at least cooked on it 3 times. I also checked to see how many pellets we burnt up, and seeing that I eventually put all 20 pounds into that 20-pound hopper, this did pretty dang good because we still have quite a few left. Go ahead and slice off a couple bones and see how we did. Now I didn't run the smoke boost on this test because I just wanted to see how this pit would perform on its normal setting. They have some good juice on them. No time like the present. Let's take a bite. Certainly has a good smoky flavor. The ribs are tender. I don't think they need a lot more moisture or anything. It probably wouldn't hurt to put a water pan if you're doing any type of barbecue in there, but I think these are a little bit more juicier than anything that I ever ran off the smoke fire. That pitmaster's pick has a little kick to it, and I like that. A little sweet with the heat. Man, that's a good smoke ring. I'm happy with it. I mean, who wouldn't be? Yeah. A very good rib. Good job, Searwood. Now we'll have links in the description below if you're looking for more information on the Weber Searwood 600. Now I've got a couple hungry boys in the house that I need to feed because I told them they'd be done about 2 hours earlier, but I appreciate you watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.